Looks like we're live according to your YouTube or Zoom notification here. Hi, people.
Okay.
I don't see YouTube yet.
YouTube's on.
Is it? Okay.
Here we go.
The radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Monday Yaron and Amy show. Amy's with me today. That is cool. She's a brat. What's up with the t-shirt, Amy?
Okay, so this is a Haley Mary t-shirt that took weeks to arrive at my mailbox from Australia during the coronavirus era. But yeah, she's out there making new music.
Jezebels.
Jezebels, yeah, Haley Mary, lead singer Jezebels. Of course you knew that. Come on.
Yeah, well, I'm a little slow.
So yes, here it is. Wait, there. Haley Mary. Okay, there we go.
All right.
Yeah. Cool. How are you?
Good.
Yeah?
Tired.
I went and got an antibody test today.
Oh, when do you get the results?
I guess a couple days, something like that. And I'm going to be speaking with Amish on Wednesday on my YouTube channel. So it'd be cool if I got the results before that. But, you know, most everybody's negative. I think the idea of actually having antibodies without having had a major health crisis would be like winning the lottery, probably.
No, I don't think that's right. I think.
You don't think so?
No, and the tests show that somewhere around 5% of the population has it. So about 5% scored positive, which makes sense.
Okay, well, that's better odds than the lottery anyway. We'll see. I will share the results.
5% is a lot, and but the problem with them, which test did you do? Where'd you go again?
Well, this is the thing. So I had been putting off a bunch of routine blood work, which I usually go to Quest for.
You got a Quest?
And so when I went on Quest's website, they have something now called Quest Direct, and you can actually just buy a test. You don't even have to have a doctor's order. So I figured, well, I'm going to have a needle stuck in my arm anyway. Might as well let them draw some blood to see if I have antibodies, right?
Well, they actually have one of the better tests. So because the problem with tests is that they have a high false positive. So the problem is that if you get a positive result, that's when you're going to be uncertain. If it's negative, you're pretty certain you're negative. But if it's positive, you might be a false positive. So it's a lot of people are recommending getting tested twice.
Well, if I was positive, maybe I would get tested again. Sure, I'd want to figure it out. But you know that I was really sick last year. I was sick too soon for it to have been this.
Probably.
I did have several weeks ago one of the, kind of reputed COVID symptoms, which was a bunch of headache, which I don't normally get headaches, but I just had headaches for several days. But that would have been like the lightest COVID case I would have ever hoped for, was just a bunch of headaches.
Seeing the list of symptoms, everybody has had a symptom in the last few months.
Yeah.
There's not upset stomach is a symptom, having a little bit of a fever, headache, runny nose, cough. I have a dry cough. Rita says, that's just a dry cough. So it's I'm really, really hoping I had it because I traveled a lot, in February and in March, all the way.
You would have been entitled. I think.
I deserve to have had it.
Yeah.
Really hoping I had it because I traveled. Have the antibodies. That would be good. And then that means my wife would have it too. Revital would have it too, and that would be perfect if we both had it. So I can't wait to get to California, among other things, so that I can get tested because here in Puerto Rico.
Oh, they don't have it, huh?
Even Quest doesn't test you.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
One of the disadvantages of being in Puerto Rico, not many, but there are a few.
So all of you guys who are watching over on YouTube, I finally did get over there. You can check out the program notes for today's show. And what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and drop a link to them right over in the YouTube chat, so people can grab them if they want to. I do spend some time putting them together, so go over, show them some love.
You did the blood test, not the nose swab test.
No, because I have no reason to think I'm active infection. And in fact, when you go in there, they do your little forehead scan and make sure you don't have a fever, and I didn't. And so we'll see what happens. I'm probably gonna learn a lot more from the routine blood work than anything else. I've been carnivore-ish for months now, and I haven't seen any blood work since, so it should be pretty interesting. Yeah. Anyway, so let's go over, if you want to dive into some of this. I want to have sort of a more positive focus. It turns out that our government keeps doing these authoritarian power grabs, which was the theme that we had last time. But I'd love to focus on how we can fight them, in addition to maybe, talking a little bit about some of them as well. But, I go on to Twitter just to share the program notes for this show. Yeah. And then I see this video of the kind of pro-democracy people in Hong Kong getting arrested in the middle of their parliament or whatever. Did you see that?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Chinese have used this crisis to clamp down on a lot of the activists, and not only in parliament, but they've also gone after the activists. They put them in jail. So they've used this, the opportunity of this whole thing, to arrest a bunch of the pro-democracy, or I wouldn't call them pro-democracy, the anti-China demonstrators all over. But it's really sad. I mean, China, another black mark in China. But the good news is, I read a story today that Hong Kong, has had a handful of deaths. And you think about condensed, you think about people living on top of each other. But they were very, very good at voluntarily socially distancing, very, very good at wiping down everything and wearing masks and doing all this stuff. And they've had very few cases. And I also think the heat and humidity help. But they've had very few cases of death. And Hong Kong is one of the good examples out there of success stories in terms of, and think about it, they are connected to Wuhan.
Yes.
By train. They get Chinese coming all across the border all the time. Right. They should have seen a huge spike. And instead, we in the United States can't handle this thing because we can't get enough testing done, and we can't let people voluntarily.
Oh, but we have the best testing because Trump says, our numbers are higher than anybody else.
Well, they are the highest now. We're in May. This would have helped in March. Sure. May, a little too late, a little too little. Yeah. And we've been in lockdown for 2 months. I mean, Hong Kong didn't do a kind of forced lockdown as far as I know. Maybe they did one that was short, but it's just unbelievable how the extremes to which our government has gone, and the results have been awful in spite of that. We're still getting 80,000+ people dying. So kudos to Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore, and South Korea for doing a relatively good job of this, particularly the best in the world with Taiwan and South Korea. And of course, Sweden is not bad in Europe, but
well, right. And one of the things that we can talk about is if people want to reconsider where they live, for example, based on the performance of their government, whether local or national or anything else during this crisis.
Everybody should move to Florida. They had the least amount of lockups. They've got a very elderly population, and yet,
do you think it's humidity and heat then? That's really interesting.
I think humidity and heat help. I think also the fact that Florida is, people live in single family homes, old people, there are a lot of old people there, but they live in their own home. They don't live in a lot of these elderly, condominium type complexes. They're much more independent. I don't know. That's my, but weather, I think, has something to do with it, and people being cautious, and people, it also has to do with poverty, particularly in places like New York, and it has to do with multi-generational families in one house.
Yeah.
And it has to do with where the virus came in and who it infected first and how quickly it spread. And, Florida doesn't have public transportation. Another reason I hate public transportation, it's a place where you can easily get viruses and diseases. So Florida's done phenomenally well.
Well,
and they didn't need a lockup.
No, and then of course, Florida has low taxes and other things that make it attractive, whether you're in COVID era or not. Yeah.
And the best business regulation environment in all the United States. So in terms of doing business, I think the best state in the country.
This is so funny. So now I'm going to get the big light in, and it's been cloudy here all day, and I thought I could get away with sitting right here. So we're going to see how I do. So far, so good. Yeah, you're going to see me squinting, etc. for a little bit. We'll see.
Squinting. Okay.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. No, it has nothing to do with you, Yaron. It's not that lockdown hair of yours. It's just a little bit of sun over here. So
waiting for a haircut.
Yeah, so we've got this on-demand testing that people can order. At least here we do. And probably anywhere there's a Quest, you can do this now, which I think is wonderful. So yeah, go out if you guys are going to do it. Like I said, I've been putting off routine blood work. There really wasn't a reason to do that, it seems, because you could just go there and they have distancing and masks and everything else, and it seems perfectly fine. But yeah, so go do your stuff. And then
people should get tested, particularly the antibody test. It's good, and it's good for the data to be out there. You can also do so I think the more testing we do, the better. You can also do do you have it right now? Because even you might be asymptomatic. So it's just good to know. Knowledge is good. Information is a good thing. So I encourage people to get tested, not to wait until you have symptoms, not to, it doesn't cost that much money. It's worth, the knowledge is worth
it. If you were going to do the swab test every several days, it would start to add up, right? But it's
when I start traveling, that's what I would like to do. I'd like to be able to do a swab test. I mean, ideally, you could do the 5-minute tests if they work. The last I saw, the results are pretty pathetic. But it would be ideal if I could do a swab test before I travel, when I get back, so that I could know what's going on and where I stand, given that, although there is good news on the vaccine front. I see you have the story that Moderna.
Oh yeah, no, I woke up to that this morning.
Crazy today, crazy. I mean, the S&P was up over 3%. The Nasdaq Manx stocks were up 10% off the news that stage 1 trials were positive. They still got 2 more stages, and stage 1 is by far the easiest, but they got mildly, some positive results, and the market just went wild. So, but it is.
Well, I mean, it sounds pretty good. It was, from what I understand, the results are that it was safe, like it didn't kill these people. So this is all nice.
Small sample.
That they actually did generate the antibodies from it, and that it helped them stave off any active illness from the virus, right?
3 to 6 months, we'll find out if it's any good, and then they'll have to do some other stuff, and maybe by the end of the year we'll have it. But yeah, I mean, people overreact to bad news and they overreact to good news. It's the nature of what happens when you have a culture that is motivated by emotion, not by reason.
Well, and I have been under the impression, obviously, the bureaucrats have been trying to, I think, keep us in fear, or at least the ones who want to do the power grabs. They like to keep us in fear.
Well, and the media.
And the media, right? So there was one of these stories in the New York Times, and they'll do something like this all the time now, because we're everything's opening up. We are ready to go ahead and sort of embrace the risk and go on with our lives. We're going to take precautions according to our risk aversion, et cetera, but we want to go on and live. And here's New York Times with an article that says something like mysterious condition linked to COVID, and here's a bunch of children suffering, or here's this. And then they'll tell you this horrible thing, but they don't give you any specifics about the cases where people do have this mysterious rare condition, so that you could intelligently assess your own risk. And so
probably that's not fair, because they don't know, right? Because about 100 kids have come down with this thing, which is very unusual, very rare children's disease. They all recover, they don't die, but it's tough because they have to go to hospital. It's unpleasant, right? But they don't know why the kids are getting this. They don't know exactly what the relationship with COVID. Most of the kids are testing positive to COVID, but not all of them. Same phenomena happened in Italy. In northern Italy, some kids got the same disease. So they think it's related somehow to COVID, but they don't understand how. So it is a little scary if you had kids, but they don't give you the perspective. It's 100 kids out of how many kids are in New York. But But that's true every day. You see the numbers with no context, with no information, with no.
Well, and that's the thing, to try to get some sort of correlation about it. So no, I'm not very impressed. And so I think it's being in this fear such that if you get positive news like this, you're going to have such a huge amount of relief that you're going to react more positively to it. You know, it was later in the notes, but I was going to mention that Dave Rubin had this nice discussion with Mike Rowe, and Rowe had this interesting observation because he goes a little bit psychological, but he was saying that, you know, how people have been so, you know, animated, and in their discussions, and the disagreements have become quite vehement and sometimes kind of nasty among people about various policies and everything during this era. And the way he describes it is that pretty much everybody is going through the stages of grief, all the various stages of grief, you know, the anger and acceptance and depression and all this stuff, right? And that each person is in a different stage of grief because they're reacting to a different data point that they're absorbing through this crisis. And then like everybody, you know, so I'd be in the depression stage, and you'd be in the acceptance stage, or, you know, I'd be in the anger stage and you'd be in the depression stage, or whatever, right? And we would be talking from those perspectives, and that any disagreement that we have would be that much more heightened because of the different stages.
Still a reflection of the fact that we live in a culture where people can't separate their emotions from their reason. I mean, you can be in the depression stage and the anger stage, you still have a reasoned conversation where you express the data and the information and the facts that you have, and you can compare, and maybe, you know, you can come to some common ground. But when everything's about emotion, when everything is about how I feel and not about the facts and not about reality, then yes. And I think what's happened in the last, certainly in the last 4 years, but over the last maybe 10, 20 years, is the culture has become more and more and more emotionalistic and more focused on emotions and not caring about facts. And you can see that with the conspiracy theories. You can see that with, you know, you should have seen, I criticized these two California doctors about their statistical inference, which they did badly. They were wrong. Right?
Wow.
Oh my God, I was the devil. And thousands of people watched the video. They don't usually watch my videos, but they love these kind of videos. And 99% of them hated my guts. Not because I was wrong. I wasn't. But because how dare I criticize somebody that they agreed with? And I said, I agree with what they're trying to do. They wanted to open up California and everything.
Sure.
You don't achieve that by doing the math wrong, by doing logic and statistical inference wrong. And I slammed them for that, to get your math right. But people would not accept that. You have to be 100% on board. It's like you can't criticize Trump, right? You criticize Trump, you've got Trump derangement syndrome. Well,
and they probably thought that they found what these doctors were saying was reassuring. This is the Dr. Erickson.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah. And they found it reassuring. And so they thought that they felt a little safer, and maybe you were making them feel unsafe too.
No, it was more than that. It was an ideological thing. These guys wanted to open up. Erickson wanted to open up, and so they were on the good guy side, and anybody criticizing them was automatically a bad guy, even though I'm on the open up side as well.
Sure.
Blank out. You have to agree with everything, and who am I to criticize a couple of doctors when what they're doing is statistics, not medicine? I actually probably know statistics better than the doctors do, but nobody cares. It's irrelevant. But that's
if you know statistics, you know more than I do. That's for sure, because I was a math major and I hated that stuff. But yeah,
I hated statistics. I hated probability because it was so counterintuitive. But it's hard, and this is why you have to know what you're doing when you do stats and when you do probabilities. And it's I've got a PhD in finance. It's how, I've published articles that do statistics, that do regressions, that do statistical inferences. This is what I did for a living. And anyway, it's just that mentality of you can't criticize somebody if he's on my team. You can only criticize the people on the other team. It's pure tribalism. Pure collective.
So speaking of some sort of like a tribalism, or people being a bit kind of swayed by ideology or perceived ideology of people. What about this anti-vax sort of reaction that we're getting about a potential coronavirus vaccine? Sometimes because the people who end up, creating the vaccine might be connected with Bill Gates in a certain way, right?
When we know he's the devil.
Yes.
He is involved in mass murder and horrific things that he's done in his life.
I mean, he's wasted a lot of people's time because Microsoft just crashes all the damn time and like ruins your day. But other than that, what is he responsible for in a bad thing? I don't know.
I mean, this is all conspiracy.
He's rich.
BS. It's, people want easy explanations. So the conspiracy theory right now is that Bill Gates and Fauci basically set us up for this. Because they wanted to then be able to sell us a vaccine. And that Bill Gates' real goal with selling us a vaccine is to kill off a certain percentage of the population, because the vaccine will kill you, because he believes there's too many people on planet Earth and he wants population control. So this is he wants to make more money, but the vaccine he's doing is nonprofit. But anyway, the main thing is that he wants to kill off a population. But no, I mean, this virus has brought out more conspiracy theories than 9/11. Which is pretty stunning, because there were a lot of crazy conspiracy theories. Yes. And I think I said this on the show yesterday, America's starting to remind me of the Middle East, where everything has a conspiracy theory. Everybody believes in conspiracy theories. And it's becoming a culture of mystics, emotionalists, who can't conceptualize a causal chain of events. And therefore, they can't conceptualize abstract causes. So they have to find a person, they have to find a devil to blame everything on. And, whether it's Jews or Chinese or Mexicans or Bill Gates or Fauci. I mean, it's convenient that it's somebody who doesn't like Trump. You always want them right now, because most of these conspiracy theories are coming from the right, primarily. You have to focus on people who are anti-Trump, Fauci, who stands up to Trump, or Bill Gates, who is, I guess, left of center. But, but there are conspiracy theories on the left as well. They have their crazy stuff. But right now, the primary conspiracy theories are coming from the right, and they all have the same kind of view. By the way, the left and right in conspiracy theories hate the billionaires, hate the billionaires, and hate the,
and I think Tucker's partially responsible for that, right? Tucker Carlson.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Yes, Tucker's become, he's a populist. He's a anti-business, anti-capitalist, right-wing populist. That's Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
And he's becoming more and more of that. And Fox News gives credibility more and more to the conspiracy theories. The president today announced that he is taking that medication,
hydrochloroquine or whatever, right? Yes.
And now, even if he is, why is he telling the American people he is? It's so
politicized,
unbelievably politicized and irresponsible. It's because the first mentions of it came out on right-wing blogs, pro-Trump blogs mentioned this originally. He came out for it in March, and now, if you're for Trump, you take it. And if you're against Trump, you don't take it. And nobody cares about the science. Nobody cares about the evidence. Nobody cares about the fact that a lot of doctors, not all doctors, you'll find a lot of doctors are walking away from this drug, don't think it's very effective, are worried about the side effects.
Yeah.
But Trump, hey, I'm taking it. What's the downside? No problem. And it has some serious downsides. I remember I took it when I traveled to places like Brazil, or places like Thailand where they have malaria, taking it, right? And the doctor always gives you the warnings about all the things, all the side effects, all the problems that can occur from it. And they're not trivial. But just the nonchalantness with which Trump it just reinforces these kind of, and you know what the conspiracy theory is? The conspiracy theory is that Bill Gates and all these other people don't want you to know that this drug is a cure, because one, it's a drug that is in a public domain, so the patent is expired, so it would basically really, really cheap. Nobody would make money off of it. So how could they get rich if you did that? And secondly, They don't want a cure because they want an excuse to shut down the economy. And if there was a cure, we wouldn't have an excuse to shut down the economy. It's just the convoluted explanations for these things are just unbelievable. You know, I hope the drug works, but all the evidence I've seen, the overwhelming evidence I've seen, and the overwhelming evidence Amish adults have seen, and most of the experts have seen, suggests that it's probably not good for this virus. It's good for malaria, and it's good for a few other diseases, like I think there are a number of autoimmune diseases that the drug works. So it's a good drug. Yay, hydro, whatever the drug is that I can't pronounce its name. But the idea that the medical profession is somehow part of a left-wing conspiracy to deny Americans a cure from a disease that kills them, that medical doctors all over the country have conspired together to keep a good medicine away from people because Bill Gates is, I don't know what he's doing in the background, or because they really want to get rid of Donald Trump, so they want to crash the economy. I don't know what the explanation is, but really, no. I mean, your doctor, would they do that?
No, I mean, no. And all these people who are signing up to volunteer for the next stage of the trial and everything, I mean, what is it? They're not going to be given the real vaccine. You know how many people would have to coordinate in order to pull off a conspiracy of the type that they're fantasizing about? It's bizarre.
And what they're going to say is that Moderna, you'll see the Moderna vaccine is going to fail because it's not a Bill Gates vaccine, and only Bill Gates' vaccine will actually be successful. What they don't realize is what Bill Gates is actually building are factories that will be able to produce somebody else's vaccine when one's available.
So whatever wins,
It's one thing to have a vaccine, right? Because having a vaccine is great. But how do you produce enough to vaccinate hundreds of millions of people around the globe, billions of people around the world? So one of the things that's happening all over the world is people are building factories or readapting factories so that when a vaccine is produced, they would sublicense it and produce it, because we'll need billions of doses of this thing.
Yeah.
And that is basically what Bill Gates is doing. So I guess he'll poison the vaccines when he gets them. I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. And then how you're going to get all of the factories to do it at the same time, and when, I mean,
all the people working in the factories and the chief scientists at the factories are all in on it, it turns out.
Exactly. But there are two things, right? So one is there is this anti-vax movement, and I went ahead and put an article here in the program notes where Science Mag is talking about the fact that based on their analysis, within 10 years' time, it will be anti-vaccine views that will dominate online discussion that are out there. Now, they're talking about Facebook and everything, and who knows if Facebook's actually even going to exist in 5 years. They've sold their soul to the FTC and the DOJ, as far as I'm concerned. But, that's another story for another day. They're analyzing this. They're saying that the anti-vax movement has gained a lot of steam out there. And so I think one of the things would just be to help spread a rational attitude about the vaccines. I mean, it used to be, I forget, was it with polio, where once there was a vaccine for polio, they actually had like a moment of silence and celebration around the world because of this vaccine. Now, what do we have here? We have stock market speculation just on a phase 1 trial or whatever. But if there was actually a proven safe vaccine that goes through some more hurdles, that should be the reaction. I mean, my gosh.
Yeah, but it won't be, because there's so much. Well, it depends who endorses the vaccine, right? Is it a Trump vaccine, or is it a Biden vaccine, or is it Gates, or is it Amazon? If Amazon invests a vaccine, then oh my God, that did they give it as part of Prime, or don't they? I mean, it's insanity. But everything has become politicized. This is the great tragedy of the last, I don't know how long it's been. Friends of mine tell me, some people say, it's always been like this, but I don't believe that. I mean, I've been in this country for 33 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember it being as bad. And I noticed it under Obama. Like, Obama fans were rabid Obama fans, and people who hated Obama, they hated Obama. Everything he did, nothing was good. And came up with conspiracies about Obama, including our current president, who was a birther. I remind you all, he was one of the main conspiracy theorists around Obama. But since Obama, this complete and utter the truth is determined by what tribe you belong to. And it's the end of the country if that is sustained. If that cannot be broken, if that cannot be changed, then it's over. And then it's just a question of, what do we do next? And it's really tough. And let's hope that there's a way out of this. I hope that there's a way out of it.
I mean, I think, each of us refusing to just put, kind of cast our lot with one side or the other when they are both terrible. Yep. Individually keep working on that. I mean, one of the things that I like about Dave Rubin, for example, is that he talks explicitly about the fact that he's sick of the whole partisan politics thing and that you should reject this false alternative that we're given out there. And that's what you see. You see a very authoritarian spirit where they just latch on for no reason, et cetera. And at the same time, we're just given the worst. The memes that are out there about the choice that we have this fall, I won't even repeat, but, predators and such, we choose from one or the other.
Better than the choice we had 4 years ago. I mean, it is what it is, but it's, I don't know how you turn the country around. I mean, there's a lot of good things happening, but they're primarily happening outside of politics, and they're happening and even Justin Amash decided not to run. I was excited about, I don't know that I'd vote for a Libertarian Party, but I was excited about seeing him because I think he's smart, he's sharp, he's quick. Yes. It would be fun to see him on a debate stage.
Yes.
And I might have even supported him financially, even though I might have not voted for him. But yeah, I know. But he is, but even he's not running. So that kind of
I was kind of puzzled as to why he dropped out. I saw a tweet from Stossel. And Stossel says, if we're going to have a libertarian candidate, it needs to be somebody, I think he used the word charismatic, but something like that if it wasn't that word. And he says, well, I suppose that Amash realized he just wasn't that guy. And so it's good that he dropped out.
Who would it be? Who's charismatic? Well, me, I could do it.
Well, you could. You're going to run under the Libertarian ticket. And actually, I don't think it's legal for you yet, right? They haven't done that. So
Can't do it. They need to change the laws. All right. So somebody's asking, how prevalent is that tribal mentality really? Could it be a vocal minority? I think it's definitely a vocal minority. I don't think it's a majority of Americans, but it is a much bigger minority, and it's a very vocal minority online. So they make themselves known, and it appears on my feed disproportionately. No question about that. American people are better than this vocal minority.
Oh, I think probably that they are. And yeah, definitely. So there's one other thing on the topic of vaccines that I wanted to just kind of flag, which is that when there is a vaccine and you're talking about licensing all over the world, et cetera, what is the chance that a government out of need will just nationalize it, take it right out of the hands of the company that spends all these resources developing it and leave that company without proper compensation?
Well, I think it's quite likely. I think they'd probably use the taking clause. They'll probably have to pay something for it, but they'd probably find a way to nationalize it. Certainly in Europe, they will do that without compensating. And certainly in Asia, they will do that. And I think one of the things that a vaccine company will probably do as a consequence is they will license the drug in all those continents at a very low price, because they'll realize that if they try to make a significant profit off of this, they will actually just lose the drug. It'll just be stolen from them. So I think, and you saw this with Remdesivir, the Gilead.
Oh yeah, Remdesivir or something. Yeah. They
have licensed it to like 6 or 7 different manufacturers with a very low profitability rate for Gilead, because they realize that this is internationally, they don't do that, the Indians will just start producing it and not give them anything. So this way, at least they'll get something and they'll have some. So the world is such where property rights, particularly in the pharmaceutical industry, are completely disrespected.
No, and that's one of the things that is going to impede our ability to get out of this, right? Because our hope lies in part with either a successful treatment like Remdesivir or a vaccine.
And we want companies to invest huge quantities of money in it, because we want a lot of different vaccines and a lot of different of these to be tested so that one can be successful. By the way, we're getting a lot of love from Vonda Segler, who's doing a lot of super chat.
Oh, okay. Well, very nice.
Money's flowing.
So you're going to throw a little bit my way? Yay.
Yeah, I'll buy you a nice drink when I see you next.
Oh God, how long is that going to be?
I'll buy Amy dinner. I'm going to buy. That is true. I don't know how long it's going to be because
I'm out of here before you get back here. And
you're going. I'm not coming in the summer.
Yeah, I guess you're not. Yeah, I'm not eager for the temperatures, but I'm eager for the freedom. And one of the reasons I'm eager for.
Where you're going? Is it public where you're going?
Yeah, I told people I'm going to Texas.
She's going to Austin. So all you Texans, Amy's joining you. And all you Austinites, Amy is joining you. Austin is becoming like this. It always was the Mecca, the center of the universe, but now it's become, triple that, quadruple that. A bunch of my friends have moved to Austin.
I've lived in Austin. I've lived in Houston.
I visited you when you lived in Austin.
Yeah, and now
I got bit by Boo when you lived in Austin.
Oh God, don't talk about poor Boo. I don't have Boo anymore. It's so sad.
That was nice to reminisce.
It was fairly recently. She lived to over 17 years old, that dog.
Oh, it's amazing.
It is amazing. So one of the reasons that I'm not upset about leaving has to do with the next story that we're about to talk about here. And that is the Cordias. I understand that you had them on your show as well. I had them on my show. So
I did not have them on my show, but I did. I did a segment of a show on them, and which they really liked. So I did a whole segment explaining why they did what they did. And Quint said, "Oh, you explained it better than we do. They're better than we did." So it was a good segment. It got watched a lot. And then I talked about them again yesterday, I think. So I've talked about them a couple of times. This is the gallery.
I interviewed them. So come to my channel. Don't let it go.
With Amy, and Amy interviews them, and it's Quint and Linda Cordia who own a gallery up in Napa, and they decided they were going to open, but they didn't do it in a they did it in a respectful way. They both let the authorities know. They told them they thought their laws were a violation of individual rights and unconstitutional. They said if they were arrested, they would try to take it to Supreme Court. They would challenge it. They said they would engage in social distancing. They would do it with masks and the whole thing. And they did. They opened, and then I think my interpretation, I didn't get the full picture, is that they were threatened. Their landlord was threatened, and so their landlord forced them not to open after they were open 4 or 5 days. But now, what is happening now? They have got the Pacific Legal Foundation.
Yes.
To basically write a letter saying that they will sue the county and the state if they interfere, something like that?
Well, okay, so they wrote a letter complaining about it, but in terms of actually what they think they're going to do as a result, I mean, so let's back up, right?
Linda's watching on Facebook. Hi, Linda.
Oh, Linda is. Hi, Linda.
Maybe Quintus too, because she says we're here.
Okay, well, we love you. So no, and I mean, this is the classiest civil disobedience probably ever, right? Because they have this beautiful gallery and they had it totally planned, all the social distancing they were going to do and everything, and masks. And I mean, if you think about this, right, this is an art gallery where you are told you may not touch anything. And, other shops, they get to be open. And yet this gallery supposedly was in, Newsom stage 3. He throws all these different businesses into arbitrary stages. The first one is essential, and the second is who knows what. And then the third is people who don't have enough lobbying power or something. That's all we can figure out. But, this letter, it reads really more like a legal brief or a memorandum. It talks about basically the fact that not allowing an art gallery like theirs to open under the guidelines that they have said that they're going to follow is arbitrary. Mm-hmm. And, unfortunately right now, the right to do business in this country is not protected the way it should be. It doesn't get near as much scrutiny. Any interference with the ability to do business doesn't get as much scrutiny from a judge, for example, as does freedom of speech. right? Because all you're trying to do is earn money, and that's somehow, doesn't rise to the level of freedom of association or freedom of speech or whatever. But you do get some protection. And as I understand it, the standards run along the lines of, are you discriminating as between businesses in a way that is arbitrary? And if you can show that, then you have a real case. And now, as I understand it, because they've laid out these stages and they're saying for no good reason that an art gallery like the Cordia's is going to fall under this phase 3, when there's a whole bunch of businesses in phase 2 that in fact can't even be operated as safely as theirs. It is completely arbitrary. And so the government has no good reason to have this indefinite closure on them. And it talks about the fact that this, they've been doing this for 25 years or more, and it's going to essentially put them out of business, right? But in terms of what they are actually saying, obviously they're saying this case is on our radar and we might do something just by writing the letter. Yep. But I don't think that they said in so many words that they were going to.
This is an example of the authoritarianism, right? I mean, you have some kind of central planner, some bureaucrat who gets to decide what a stage 1 and what a stage 2 and what a stage 3 business is, completely arbitrarily, based on what? Based on not on how much stuff you touch, because then the Cordia Gallery would be open in stage 1, but based on their decision about what's essential and what's not essential, what people need and what people don't need. Arts, nobody really needs art, so we'll put that last. Just forget about your personal values. Forget about what's important to you. Forget what you're willing to pay for, what you're willing to exert energy for. No, some, I was going to swear, bureaucrat is sitting in Sacramento or in the city council in Napa, who's probably never worked an honest day in his life in terms of actually producing, creating, building, making, and trading values, is going to decide whether you have a business tomorrow or not, or whether you can actually hire people, employ people, and actually build something. It is truly disgusting.
Yeah, no. So what they're doing here is they are just asking, respectfully, but of course, like I said, it's implicit in this that it's on their radar and they do these kinds of cases. But this, we ask that the state's resilience roadmap, what gibberish, right? The resilience roadmap and the county's modified shelter-at-home order be amended to allow businesses to open where they can do so consistent with state and local safety protocols. So, and they are applying more broadly. They're not just saying this is on behalf of Cordia's, and of course the Cordia's as well want all the other businesses that are able to open in safe ways like they can to be able to do so as well. So it's a fairly modest request, right? Yeah. Because it does concede maybe some things that you and I, from a philosophical perspective, would not want to concede, that the state even has power to have all these phases and all the other stuff. But they're saying, look, if you're going to do this and you're going to have guidelines as to how the businesses can open, then at least allow businesses who are able to meet these guidelines to open. There's no reason that I could think of why it would not be safe to go shop in that gallery.
So Jax is asking, what has been the legal result of the Cordia protest? Did police come? Did they get fined or not? No. So it hasn't gone to court. It hasn't got to the stage of police. The landlord, I guess, at some point requested them not to open the galleries. They didn't. But then my understanding is from Facebook right now that the landlord has given his blessing to move forward. And I think they're moving forward again to reopen. I think 6 people at a time or something like that.
Right.
And that the gallery will be open. And if the police do come, and which I think is unlikely in the end, then I think that there will be a legal challenge. And it sounds like the Pacific Legal Foundation would support such a legal challenge. Another question is, why in the hell a liquor store is essential, whereas the Cordia Gallery is last in line to reopen? Well, I mean, really, it's liquor. I mean, what could be more essential than that, right?
I mean, the liquor you need just to cope with the lockdown, I suppose.
That's right. So you need the liquor to cope with the lockdown, and the more you drink,
the less you'll care.
The less you care, and also the less the less you're competent enough to go out into public. So the more the lockdown is appropriate for you.
Anyway, kudos to the Cordia's for bravely doing this with, a steel resolve and also
and
class.
an intellectual backbone. I mean, they did this. If you read the original letter they sent, it was reasoned. This is why we're protesting. This is why you don't have a right to stop us. This is exactly what we're going to do.
Well,
so,
you know how they've done this in some places in Texas, right? Have you heard about the places in Texas where like there's some tattoo shop that has opened up and then they've got these guys armed outside in the front saying, come and try and shut us down. No, I know. I'm saying this is not that. So this is one way in which I'm thinking, okay, well, you know, at least that's not in the Austin area as far as I know.
Don't bring out your guns until you're ready for an actual revolution.
Exactly. No, it's not my thing at all.
Can you buy their t-shirts? What is the vaccine and antiviral and Israeli companies developing? I think a number of Israeli companies are developing vaccines and antivirals. Early on, there was an Israeli company that had a really promising vaccine, but I don't know what happened to it. I haven't kept track of it. I think there's several dozen different companies working on vaccines right now. So there's a big effort, both at universities, labs, and at companies. So ingenuity, entrepreneurship, innovation, science will solve this.
On Wednesday, I'm going to be asking Amish again about all the different options that are out there right now. Which is the most promising? Is it this Moderna that everybody's excited about, or are there other ones? And we'll get the latest, because as you know, it changes all the time, every day it seems. So in terms of power grabs during this time, one of the things that's of course always on my radar is privacy. And the way that I describe it right now is essentially because we're all in our homes and we're all communicating either by Zoom or other, quote, third-party services, right? We don't have any privacy. We have less privacy than we did before. I mean, you'd think you're staying in your house, you'd have more privacy, but you have less because you have to communicate using all these devices. Now, one of the exceptions is if you're using end-to-end encryption. Mm-hmm. If you are using something that offers end-to-end encryption, then it's still the case that the government can't obtain it just by going to that third party. But they like that. They're sort of, they're spoiled right now. The government they're used to, if they ever want information about you, they just go to Facebook or they go to, Zoom these days. They'll go to Zoom and get whatever they want about you without a warrant. But they're realizing that savvy people are going to encryption and they don't like it. So what do we have today? We have a press conference that Barr and then also the head of the FBI right now, I forget his name, they put on this press conference together. And essentially what they did was they said, oh, there was this terrorist attack in Pensacola and the phone was locked and we couldn't get in the phone and Apple wouldn't open the phone for us. And then finally we spent all of these government resources and these great ingenious, government people, they cracked the phone. It took 4 months and we got all this valuable information and we are protecting you from the big bad terrorists. And isn't it horrible that Apple makes this thing and that they won't give us the back door, to this encryption technology? And so the whole thing is they call this now, instead of banning encryption, they don't talk about banning encryption now. They just say that we need lawful access. That's their catchphrase, lawful access. And they think that they deserve to have this. Why? Because if you're against it, you must be against fighting terrorism.
Well, this is always the case, right? I mean, the fascists always come to power in the guise of fighting the terrorists. So they always want to take our privacy rights or any of our rights in the guise of fighting for the common good. And this is good for you. And, they never say, we want to tyrannize you. We want to control you. So you give us that power. No, they always say, those people over there, they want to tyrannize you. We're your only protection. We're the only people who help. Now, notice also that this is the same Justice Department, the same FBI, that both left and right are telling us we can't trust. And I agree with that, right? Yes. So when Trump was in power, they going after his political rivals. When Obama's in power, they go after his political rivals. These are entities that have been politicized, and now we want to give them even more power. By eliminating our ability to encrypt messages. I mean, it's just.
No, and
Power
Bar,
stops.
you know, this is probably going to be the first video. You've done a lot of this masterfully, where you play the video and you shred it during your shows. And I haven't succeeded at that technology yet because I wasn't able to get the sound going. But I'm going to have to do it. I'm going to have to shred this. This guy commits so many logical fallacies in here. It is disgusting. And then
he is disgusting. Bar is really disgusting.
Oh, I couldn't believe it. And
hack.
I mean, his view of privacy would make Justice Brandeis proud, because Brandeis from the beginning hoped to, you know, institute this right to privacy and make it from the outset subject to the public interest, so to speak. And it's exactly what Barr says. And he goes so far to say is that if Apple gives you an encrypted device, that they are doing something harmful and dangerous by giving you an encrypted device. Why? Because terrorists are going to do it. Don't they realize that it's the same exact argument as guns, right? Because you don't, I mean, conservatives all the time realize that guns don't kill people, people kill people. Encrypted devices are not the cause of terrorist acts. And for them to say that basically Apple is no better than terrorists, or that they're helping terrorists because they give us encrypted devices, it's ridiculous. And it's just because our government has gotten lazy. They don't like to confront subjects of investigation or notify subjects of investigation. And they think,
yeah, it's your information. You have every right to encrypt it and not to share it with the government, and never to share it with the government, and never let them know how to get access to it if they can't by themselves get access to it, even in the face of a warrant. So absolutely, it's your information. That's what it means for something to be yours. So it really is the right.
Anyway, so they're doing this now. They're doing this now because everybody's distracted by coronavirus. The
right is going to take it as a power grab, and the left is going to let them, because the left wants that power when they get into power. Nobody's going to oppose this. There's nobody to oppose this.
Well, I'm going to try to oppose it. So help me if people want to.
Absolutely.
But, you know, I hope Apple is going to keep standing up for itself.
I think some of the tech companies will oppose it. I think some intellectuals will oppose it. But in politics, both left and right share a disdain of privacy and share a disdain of the ability of people to keep stuff away from them, right? And this is why we get the Patriot Act passes every single year. People complain about it all the time, and then it passes. And Democrats and Republicans all vote for it. And every single year they renew it. And
they just renewed it again, as far as I know, or at least I don't know if they actually renewed it now, but they have shot down 2 different amendments that were going to make it somewhat less bad.
I think we passed it again while we weren't paying attention. I think it got.
Okay, well, no, I knew it was coming up, but I knew that a couple amendments that were going to make it not quite as bad had failed.
We've got a bunch of super chats. Do you want to say something else about this, and then we'll move to
you know, if people are interested in this in more detail, go over to legalizeprivacy.org and you can.
I mean, Amy's got a ton of content about privacy. What's the website again?
Legalizeprivacy.org.
Legalizeprivacy.org. Okay, the next question is related. What do you think about cyberpunks, specifically Julian Assange?
So Assange has done some decent things and some not so decent things, right? You know, he doesn't, as far as I know, he's not principled, but
no, he's a complete louse. I mean, he might have done
complete louse. Well, he's done some things that turned out to be okay. I'm saying he has no principles. Yeah.
So is Trump. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, you know, and so he was very big on corporate espionage, in a sense of revealing information of corporations, private information. He was big on the whole Panama Papers, which nobody criticized him for because everybody was hooray. But that's private people's trusts, people's money, people's legal arrangements. It's none of anybody's business how many companies I create in Panama in order to funnel my money to wherever. It's none of your business. All these laws restricting my ability to open bank accounts overseas and monitoring that and are disgusting and offensive and anti-individual rights. And then he was quite willing to release, you know, real secret information, like you know, all the information that one soldier kind of sent him, whether it was going to get people killed or whether it was, he didn't care. So yeah, he's done some good things, but it's by accident. It's generally, he's kind of an anarchist. He wants to smash everything, and he wants. Now, I generally believe that government should have very, very few secrets, but it's not up to somebody like Julian Assange to decide what they are. I mean, when you compare him to Snowden, it's night and day. Snowden was super responsible, relatively, and explained what he did and publicized what he did and didn't reveal everything. He only revealed the things that he thought would not be harmful to actual assets on the ground, to actual national security. Was very clear in that he didn't want to harm national security. Assange had none of that, had no problem revealing things. He didn't care one iota about national security of anybody. So no, I do not like him.
Yes. No.
Always. So the Cordes have a T-shirt that says, "Not dying is not living."
Yes.
All right, cool. That's a cool T-shirt.
Yeah.
All right.
Definitely. People can go grab it over there at their site.
Go to the Cordia website and grab a T-shirt. That's great. All right, let's see what else. All right. Somebody says they're driving up to Napa this weekend to go visit the Cordes.
Beautiful.
That one we've already covered. That one we also covered. Okay, I don't have that many questions because we covered a lot of them. Okay, is Newsom, Gavin Newsom, your governor, soon not to be, but my former governor.
He got a whole bunch of notifications today. It was awesome because this, actually it wasn't this story, it was a different story. There was a story about a state senator talking about AB5 and saying that all the people who were, AB5 is the non-freelancer law. Yeah. Basically, if you're a freelancer, you're an outlaw. And this one state senator said that, the freelancers are upset because they're not getting their lollipops anymore. And it's just horrible how condescending and out of touch with reality these people are about people just trying to, pursue their professions and make ends meet.
Disgusting. Yeah. Silicon Valley should just upend and leave.
Well, and that's so that's why I said, so my total of my comment was 1, she sucks, and 2, I'm out of here. And then I put CC Gavin Newsom, and then Ben Shapiro retweeted it. So there's like thousands of people interacting with this tweet, which means that it's in Gavin Newsom's feed time and time. It's so satisfying to know that Gavin Newsom is seeing this in his Twitter feed over and over and over. I'm out of here. Yeah. Yeah.
It's really, yes, again, politicians who've never produced, never created, never built anything in their life. People like Gavin Newsom, who've been politicians their entire life, being activists, like Obama was an activist, and they get to sit there and say, no, that job is not worthy, or you want lollipops, so go get a real job, whatever the hell that is.
And you're supposed to stay home, but you're not supposed to be a freelancer?
Yes, and you're supposed to pay a huge amount of taxes, and taxes are going to go up because California has got this big budget deficit, and they're going to cut spending across the board, because actually California constitutionally has to have a balanced budget, so at least give them that. But the way ultimately they'll balance it is by raising taxes. So it really is time for people to leave California. As wonderful as a place.
Okay, so this was the question, right? And Ruben actually, I think, is talking about it in his forum right now. He puts a post, should you leave or should you stay and fight?
It's too late. It's too late to fight.
Okay.
So is Newsom the most draconian of all the state officials? I don't know.
It's him or Cuomo in New York, right?
Cuomo's really bad, but Cuomo has
the Michigan one was bad too.
Oh, Michigan is worse. I think the Michigan is probably worse. But Cuomo has the excuse of New York really being hit hard by COVID, whereas California is not being hit hard at all. And there's certain counties in California that are barely being hit at all. And so Newsom is on one of the worst. The Michigan woman in Michigan is really bad because, like upstate Michigan, there's almost no cases. It's all the cases are in Detroit. So if you're going to lock up something, and I'm not for locking up, but if you're going to lock up something, lock up Detroit. But why you lock up rural Michigan and where there basically no cases? So yeah, Michigan is probably worse than California, but it's close. And look,
you couldn't buy seeds for your garden or some ridiculous thing like that. So Dave Rubin was sending seeds.
Yeah, and then in Ohio's pretty bad, and that's a Republican governor. So there are a bunch of them around the country, but certainly Cuomo has taken on this aura of an emperor. He sits there on the throne giving press conferences and managing the lives. And again, Cuomo, if you think about New York being hit hard, okay, so you shut down New York City. But why is upstate New York shut down? Barely any cases in upstate New York. So it's again, it's this, you can't discriminate, just horrific, one solution to fit everybody, no matter, completely drop the context, completely drop facts, non-scientific based. All of these governors, many of these governors, are just horrific. I mean, some of the best have been Florida, I think Georgia, and now Texas. But even the Texas guys being too slow, and I think Florida has probably been the best.
In terms of reopening in a way that seems appropriate.
Shutting down very loosely and late, and then opening up very quickly and early.
Well, the total shutdown in Texas was about 28 days, which wasn't horrible, but you think he's opening too slowly now?
I mean, Texas didn't need a shutdown at all. So, I mean, Texas, again, people don't live in very high density places. There's no public transportation, and none of the characteristics of places that have been hit hard. And think about Texas. Again, you don't treat Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio the same as you treat Lubbock or West Texas, or I mean, Texas is massive. There are whole counties where like 3 people live, right? And 2 coyotes and an oil well. That's about it. And why would you have a lockdown in a county like that? So it's just all of these governors, because I think to a large extent it's lack of leadership at the federal level, but then they became fearful and they became second-handed. So they locked down, so we must lock down. And I've said this on my show before, but there's a theory in economics called public choice. And what public choice does is it looks at incentives of politicians. And here are the incentives of politicians. And you can see this every single crisis. It just happens the same way. You can see 9/11 was the same way. This is the same way. It always happens the same way. At the beginning of a crisis, you've got to deny. Why do you deny? Because you can hope that it goes away. You also hope that if it doesn't go away, it only becomes bad after the election. So after you get elected, right? So the incentive structure of politicians is never to recognize a crisis early. And then step 2 is recognize, blame somebody else for it. Immediately find a scapegoat, right? Blame somebody, the banks, the Chinese, the Mexicans, the Italians, blame somebody. And then third is panic, overreact.
Yes.
And every crisis, every single crisis has been exactly the same way. And they always, you can see regulators behave the same way. The SNL, I studied this. The SNL crisis was like this. The financial crisis was like this. 9/11, if you think about the reaction to 9/11, and, we get the TSA and a complete reshuffling of the government to create the largest department in the government, Homeland Security. You get the Patriot Act, you get invading Iraq and Afghanistan and spending 12 years there. You get overreaction at the end, and so you get denial.
Patriot Act.
Yeah, you get the whole thing. Everything follows this path, and you can see it every single time. And here you saw it at the federal level, and then you saw it at the state level. And what these governors did was panic and overreact.
Yeah. Well, so you think it's too late to save California? And I would say that Ilya Somin, whom I interviewed just this last week, he talks about foot voting, essentially migration, and that would be, moving from state to state, moving internationally, whatever, that you can achieve a lot more just by leaving someplace than you could ever.
So
for yourself.
Yeah.
For yourself. And he thinks for yourself, and then also for both the place that you go to and the place that you come from. But everybody's better off if you vote with your feet.
Does he show evidence? So one of the complaints I hear in places like Colorado, even Washington State, is that Californians left California, came to these other states, and then voted in the policies that California had, because of which they left.
Yeah,
Everywhere you go, you hear this, that they all come in and then they destroy the politics of the local community.
He talks about that too, and he has some statistics that basically say no, that's really not the case too much. Now, it's harder also with interstate, but a lot of times people make that argument with international immigration. What are people going for though? Like if someone like me, I'm going because I want more freedom, right?
Yeah, but what freedom is, particularly, and this is true, I think, of immigrants across countries as well, because they do vote against their interests most of the time. So I don't know that people have a sense of freedom, but they don't know what freedom is. So yes, Californians say, there's too much taxes, I'm leaving. They go to Colorado, and then the Colorado governor says, look, we need more money for schools. We really underfunding schools. The California guys, oh yeah, we definitely need more money for schools. Raise my taxes. And then, oh, we need more money for this, and we need more money for that. And soon the taxes are just at the same rate because they haven't challenged the underlying belief, the statism, the collectivism, the altruism, whatever it happens to be. So yes, I think people should vote with their feet. But the question is not if it's too late for California. And I hate to be pessimistic, but I mean, what does too late mean? What are we trying to achieve? If we're trying to save the world, or we're trying to establish capitalism, then I think it's too late for, America's not going to become capitalist in our lifetime. It's just not happening. So
basically go where you're going to have the best life.
Yeah, you've got to go for you as an individual and go, and this is how I've lived my life. Go to the place where you as an individual, did I move to Puerto Rico because I think I can change Puerto Rico into some capitalist heaven? No, I moved to Puerto Rico because my life, I think, will be better here than anywhere else. And it, not to say that your life would be, your life might be better in Texas, or your life might be better in Florida or in California, depending on your values. So we each have to make choices about our own lives. The chances of actually making political change were very minute 20 years ago when I was an optimist, and they're much, much smaller today because
there are places where it's a little easier to get involved. So for instance, Josh Yokela, who sometimes appears on my show and stuff, he is the legislator in the state legislature in New Hampshire. He's a freshman in the House there. And it's fairly easy to get involved in politics in New Hampshire, for example.
And how are they doing?
How's
taking steps towards laissez-faire capitalism on the state level?
Well, I mean, he just started, right? He's just a freshman, so we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I know, he's there. He just said, calling me out. He's watching us on YouTube. So while I fight the good fight, that's all good. But he says it's not going well, right? Because the change that needs to happen, as you know, Amy, as I know, as I think Josh knows, it's at the end is philosophical. So the best we can do is to slow the descent. That is to buy us time, buy civilization time, buy the Enlightenment values time, buy reason time, by the Constitution time, so that one day we'll build up that philosophical, counterpunch. But we don't have it yet. I've got 18,000 subscribers on YouTube. Any punk who's willing to say the F word and do crazy stuff and come up with
don't say this. Don't say this. I've got my small amount of subscribers, and
yes, we've all got tiny little subscriptions. But if you look
yours is a lot.
You look at YouTube and you see the number of people who have hundreds of thousands, who have nothing to say, who mainly peddle conspiracy theories and BS, and they are the people who have a voice. They are the people who people listen to. We have a lot to say, interesting stuff to say, true things to say, fascinating things to say, and nobody listens. All right, 2 more questions, and then we'll go back to your agenda.
Sure.
Okay?
Yes.
How does one answer the allegation that if you want the lockdowns to be lifted and go out, you want to sacrifice others to yourself?
Okay, so I mean, the question really, I think, amounts to how much do they think that you're going to go around and be oblivious of the idea that you could be asymptomatic and infect everybody else? Right? So do you really think that a bunch of people are jerks like that, where they are going to go out knowing that they could be asymptomatic carriers and just, purposefully, like rub their nose and then put it on the pad at, at the grocery store or whatever and stuff? I mean, no.
And those people should be socially ostracized. Those people should be condemned. Those people, if I had a neighbor who was going on spitting on people, then I would stay away from him and never speak to him again. I would not invite him into my store. I would keep away from him. That's what social kind of shaming and social I can't even say the word.
Ostracization or something, right?
Is good for. But the idea that if you go out responsibly and if you behave responsibly, and that at least 95% of people out there who are asymptomatic don't have the virus.
Yes.
So you might have the virus. That's why I encourage all of you to get tested. So that way you can be more responsible, right? So I would definitely do the test, and I would test myself relatively frequently, not every week, but reasonably frequently. Plus, by the way, we don't know actually how contagious asymptomatic people actually are.
No, we don't know those things. Yeah.
So it's not clear that they are. That might be a bit of hysteria. But
yeah,
you behave responsibly, and it's ridiculous. On the other hand, you are sacrificing me by keeping me indoors when there's a 95+% probability that I don't have the virus.
Yes.
So you're sacrificing me to what? To your fear. Your fears are forcing me to be sacrificed.
Well,
and that is unacceptable.
And again,
go on the offensive. Don't let them harass you.
Well, and going back to Mike Rowe, and then this is a discussion that I've had with Benjamin. Sometimes he's got a blog post about all this. People expect a completely riskless existence. And of course, our government and media have not helped during this particular era. But, Mike Rowe was talking about this with Dave Rubin, and you can't have safety first, really. I mean, some companies, they say, oh, we put our safety first and everything, but you really cannot, right? Otherwise you could never walk out the door ever for anything. I mean,
it's death.
You could get struck by lightning. I mean,
I've said this all along. Lockups, getting rid of the lockups, more people will die, right? Driving, more people do die. Lots of things that you do, lots of activities will cause people to die. I mean, every time, some people, Amy, I think, as many times has thought, letting Yaron onto the street driving will cause people to die. Because, I mean, the first time I picked her up at the airport in San Jose years and years ago, she said, "Oh my God, Yaron, you drive like a New York taxi driver." And I thought she was complimenting me, but that was not her intention at all. But yeah, I mean, you can't live in fear. You can't stop people from acting, even though some of their actions will put other people at risk. That's just life, and we have way too many safety regulations already that I think inhibit innovation, inhibit investment in new products, and inhibit, think about the fact that we haven't built a nuclear power plant in decades. I mean, that's because of safety.
It could be the cleanest source of power ever.
The cleanest, the most efficient, and potentially the cheapest.
Right.
We got over it. Okay, last question. What do you think Michael Moore's motivation for his movie are and going after the environmentalists? He claims they are sellouts to corporate entities.
You did a whole show on this, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's his motivation. His motivation is that he thinks they're sellouts. He thinks that they're not pure enough. He thinks that to be pure, you would have to recognize that human beings need to use less energy, that human beings need to stop using energy, that less human beings need to be on the planet, that generally you have to recognize that human beings are plague on nature. And until you get rid of human beings, nature's going to be hurt. And I think he really believes that. He won't articulate it exactly that way, but that is basically his underlying premise, and that's what the movie conveys. And that was his goal. That's what he wants to say, even if he can't admit it to himself.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because a lot of times what these things convey is your deeply held beliefs, even if you're not willing to actually say them.
Okay, so here's the question for you, Yaron, okay? And here I'm playing off a little discussion that I did have with Ruben. I've got a short clip in the program notes from my longer interview with him. And he was talking about in this era that people are sort of rethinking how they live, where they live. You might not be impressed at all, for instance, with your governor, and you've seen this totalitarian side of the governor that never really caught your attention before now. So maybe where you go, but also work. You're realizing maybe you like working from home more. So maybe instead of continuing to work for a company, you're going to start a consultancy on your own and, oh my gosh, become a freelancer. You can't live in California then. Or, one of the things he talked about is you're going to think about who you're living with. And do you like being in the same house with this person for weeks on end? And what does that say, right? So there's all sorts of things that you start to think about in this era. And, do you have something that you're sort of taking going forward? I know you miss travel and you can't wait to go back out and give some talks live again, because I'm sure it's not the same. But other than that, I mean, are there some things that you have discovered that you like more than you thought? You were able to pursue something during this time that you haven't? I mean, I think it's gonna.
There's always stuff that you do. I like spending more time with my wife. I don't, given my travel schedule, I often don't. So we've been together for, for 2 months, which is very unusual for us, without either of us traveling, because she travels a lot as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't like the fact that it was forced on us, and I don't like the fact that we couldn't go to restaurants and we couldn't go to the beach and we couldn't do the stuff that we love doing while we're doing that.
Even the beaches are closed there too.
Luke says he's not nobody and he listens to what I have to say, and we aren't lost. Thank you, Luke. I appreciate the optimism, and thank you for the contribution. That is a good amount of money. And I know, look, I know I'm having an effect on individual people. I have, you guys keep me going. I couldn't do it if I didn't feel like I was having a real impact on real people. And I don't consider you as nobodies, but cultural change requires numbers. It just does. That's just it doesn't require the majority, but it requires numbers. It requires influence. It requires a growing audience, and it requires starting to see your message appear in the public sphere. And I don't get that. I don't have the numbers, and I don't get the message in the public sphere. And indeed, I think my numbers, I don't know, I had a better sense of numbers. I had a sense that the numbers were bigger 10 years ago than they are now. I don't think that's true. I just think it's subjective. I think it's my subjective error. But I was definitely thought I was having a bigger influence 10 years ago than I am today. But I have 18,000 subscribers, which is a lot of people, and it's and a lot of you, most of you are fantastic. And many of you support the show very, very generously. And I know I've had an impact on your life because you guys tell me I have. So I appreciate that. But, volume matters. Numbers matter. And when we get to there, we get to remind me the question. Amy, you had a question.
So the question was, what have you learned and what are you going to take forward?
So, yeah, so it was great spending time with my wife. That was great. It's actually not bad idea to have like blocks of 2 months where you don't go anywhere. That's not a bad idea. I've always worked from home, or have worked from home for a long time, either from home or from hotel room or from wherever. Sure. So that is pretty easy. I've done a lot more meetings and done a lot more presentations via video, and it's not bad. It's not as bad as I thought it would be.
Mm-hmm.
So, and particularly the meetings I've done for my finance business, I've done a lot of meetings with potential investors, and I thought they've gone well. Mm-hmm. What have I learned? I'm trying to be positive. More than anything, at the end of the day, I think you learn something you already know, but it reinforces it. You learn the value of freedom. You learn the value of being able to go to the beach, which is pretty trivial, but it's, wow. I mean, the beach is right there staring in my face, and I can't literally go there.
Okay, yeah, that was part of my question I was getting to you, was I can't believe they don't let you go to the beaches there.
Let's go to the beach. So we snuck onto the beach because we had some friends staying in a neighborhood where they weren't enforcing it much. So we went to the beach a few times, and they've gone, unfortunately, so we can't sneak into their beach anymore. But we snuck the beach a few times. But yeah, we got a beach right here. Several beaches within 5-minute walk. I've got 3 beaches, and I can't go to any of them.
Wow.
And, so you value the little things, right? So I always took restaurants for granted. We love restaurants. We love going to restaurants.
Yes.
We love going out to eat. We love hanging out in restaurants. We like getting to know the chefs and chatting them up and stuff. And we've done a lot of that in Puerto Rico. And just not being able to do that is, did you hear what we've arranged for my birthday?
I did hear about this. Yes. Yes. It sounds wonderful. Yeah. Yay.
So we got one of our favorite restaurants here in Puerto Rico. The chef and his wife are going to come to a home, and they've prepared a kind of several our favorite dishes, and they are going to serve us here in our home. So since they can't open the restaurant even for the two of us, right? So we said, well, could we just I'll rent the restaurant for the evening, just the two of us. And he said, we can't do that. That would break the law, but we can come to your place. It probably is also breaking the law, but nobody needs to find out. So we're going to do that for my birthday, which is Saturday. So that'll be a lot of fun. So
I'll just let you know that I've had a number, well, not a number, at least 2 or 3 now, beautiful ribeye roasts like you've never had in your life. I'm actually now very good at making short ribs.
Cool.
I've made some really tasty short ribs.
More reason to visit you in
In Texas, the cuts of meat will be cheaper and better probably. So yeah, you'll have to come on over. But yeah, I've been eating quite well. I don't have complaints in that department, but
I think it's appreciating the little stuff. It's appreciating being able to go to the beach, being able to go to a restaurant, being able to fly if you want to fly, just being able to do what you want to do. Go for a walk if you want to go. We have a curfew right now.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, 7 o'clock. It's illegal to be outside.
Wow.
7 to 5 a.m. We have a curfew. That's supposed to all go away soon, but we'll see. I'll believe it when I see it.
What if people have dogs to walk? What if they have dogs to walk?
They have to walk them before 7 p.m.
Ooh. Wow.
7 p.m.
No. Okay. So we're not so bad, I guess, in California. We get to walk our dogs.
Says, what is a short rib? Frank needs an education.
Oh my! Short ribs are the candy of meat. That's how I've been putting it lately. Mostly because I'm restricted on diet.
Very, very soft. It's so tasty.
So it's beef ribs, and they're very fatty, and you cook them in the slow cooker, and I put turmeric and bay leaf and salt, a little bit of vinegar, some bone broth. Those things just fall off the bone. That's so good. I'm going to make myself hungry. So the other thing, of course, is, have you been indulging in all of the plethora of online content? So for me, for example, yes, I'm a fan of Haley Mary and, lead singer of the Jezebels. And she's done a number of live performances that I wouldn't have been able to see, but for now they've put them online, right? And so, she was going to do this whole tour promoting her EP, and it all got canceled, but it wasn't, as far as I know, going to be over here at all. And I would have missed everything. But now there's this live video that I stuck on there where she, it must be weird for them, because Tamir's doing the concert series out of his home every week. It's wonderful. He's getting better at it all the time. But, they do them sometimes in venues, but there's no audience. And so imagine you go there and you're playing and you expect to hear clapping or some sort of reaction, and there's nothing. And in fact, when Tamir, he's doing it on Zoom, so he must mute everybody. He has to mute them. Otherwise, the slightest little thing will mess up the sound. And so
let you hear all the clapping anyway, because it only allows one audio feed at a time.
Yes.
So we tried during Ocon this last weekend to have everybody clap, and it just doesn't. You hear clap here, you don't hear the effect of everybody clapping. No, have you seen these drive-in concerts? So people are doing concerts outdoors where people drive to. They roll down the windows and they sit listening to the concert.
Okay, so drive-in movies are going to come back or something? I don't know.
Huge. They're very big in Texas right now. I think there's an objectivist who owns some drive-in theaters in the Dallas areas. And it's very big right now because it's very popular, right? It's the way to go to the theater. But the same with drive-in concerts, all kind of drive-in stuff where you stay in the car is going on. But no, what's interesting about my life is that I've been busier the last 2 months than I've been in a very long time. My work on the hedge fund has gone through the roof because financial markets have got it so crazy. And then doing the show and doing lectures, I'm doing yesterday, I did Ocon, then yesterday I did something for German Students for Liberty. 2 days from now, I'm doing something for Georgian from Tbilisi Students for Liberty. And then I'm doing something, no, not Students for Liberty, but another organization. Then I'm doing Italy, then I'm doing London. So I'm kind of traveling around the world so I've been super, super busy. And I haven't had a chance to do all the fun stuff that is associated with being at home. Right.
I mean, in a way, you're able to have more impact because you can talk to people in all these different places without the travel time. Yes or no? Yeah,
but it's not as effective and it's not as much fun, right? It's not as much fun for me. It's not as much fun for them. And I don't think as effective, but yeah, I mean, it saves me huge amounts of time.
So could you see a mix going forward where it's at least heavier on the stay home part?
Definitely. I can see a mix of that.
I mean, you've been talking about this as long as I've known you, that you were going to cut back on your travel, but maybe this time you actually will.
maybe this time I actually will. There's certain things I still want to do travel wise, but both because my commitment to my financial side has increased, which requires me to travel, but travel to different places and to basically work at home a lot. And now I've discovered I could do a lot of those meetings.
Those meetings online, right? Yeah.
So yes, I do think that I'll be traveling less in the years to come, but as any friend of mine will say, they'll believe it when they see it, right?
Yes.
You've known me a long time and I say that every year, but maybe this will do it. We'll see.
So
right.
more and more meals at home too, or restaurants are still going to be your thing?
As soon as restaurants opening up, I'm heading right there. And I, the one thing I definitely want to do is travel for fun, but it's hard to travel. We'll see what opens up and where it opens up. And I've still got tickets to go to Europe in the first week in August. We'll see if that happens. I doubt it. I'd probably have to cancel. And then I've got trips planned for September and October. We'll see if they happen.
Newsom, as far as I understand, went to Montana.
Well, his family's there vacationing. And they just showed a picture of him at a buffet in Napa, and all the food is laid out in buffet style. I thought buffets were no good. Buffets. So, these politicians, they truly believe there's some form of philosopher king where the rules don't apply to them and they get to dictate our lives and they can do whatever the hell they want with no consequences. And some of them need to die of COVID. I don't usually wish death on people, but some of them need to suffer. They should get sick of this and have to get one of those incubators.
Ventilators.
Feel what it feels like, because the way they're behaving is so arrogant and ridiculous, and it really is disgusting the way they rule over us. And the rules don't apply to them.
So,
all right.
Do we tell people how to escape and how to combat all of this authoritarian? So it's back to basic philosophy,
Move, right? Go to better places. Focus on your life. Focus on your values. Focus on what brings you joy and happiness. Surround yourself with beauty, and fight. Join the fight. Fighting is, I don't think, optional. So fight. Join the fight, and let's change the world together. I mean, I might not see it, but maybe some of you will, and maybe some of your kids will. So there's a lot of work to be done.
Okay. Well, thank you, Yaron. We're going to do this again in 2 weeks, I believe.
That's right.
So.
2 weeks, I think also Monday.
Yeah, it's going to be on Monday again, the same time. We'll see. I don't know if I'm going to get away with this light or do someplace else, but we'll see how it goes. And then I've got Amish on Wednesday. So if people want to see another update with him, it'll be over at my YouTube channel. So
YouTube, Amy Peikoff, go to her YouTube channel. You can also go to don'tletitgo.com, all one word, don'tletitgo.com.
That's me.
And you can support Amy on Patreon.
Yeah, either that or now I'm over on Locals too. That
Amy's
site
Locals.
with
Well,
Ruben.
I'm on Locals. I still haven't figured out why I'm on Locals and what exactly I'm doing there. But I know some of you support me on Locals, so thank you for that. You can support me on Locals, on Patreon, on Subscribestar, and on my website, yaronbrookshow.com/support. Don't forget, like every show, to like it. YouTube cares. The algorithm.
They do, yeah.
Gods of the algorithm.
Do you know? You want to hear this? So I know this sounds pathetic to you because you were monetized long ago, right? Yeah. But they require 4,000 hours a year, and I had been sick for months, so I lost a whole bunch of time. But now I am over 3,900 hours.
Oh, cool.
And it's been growing steadily every day. So sometime within this week. But anyway, if anybody goes over, just check out my fun interview with Dave Rubin or anything else. I had a fun interview with John Allison.
Over the 4,000.
Yeah, help me out. No, and then I'm going to have Super Chat too, and I don't have to be left out of that fun toy. And yeah. So if you want to come over, that'd be great.
So I'll be back. When would I be back? Probably today's Monday. Probably Wednesday evening. And Amy's got a show coming up with Amish, and we're going to do some fun stuff, I think. Good. And I'll see you in 2 weeks. And
yes. And you'll know whether I'm COVID positive or not.
That's right. Hopefully I'll know before then. But yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Amy.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Great week.